You know that feeling when you're watching something go wrong in slow motion? That's the PGA Tour right now. And right at the center of the chaos is a private phone call that nobody was supposed to hear about, but everyone is talking about. Brian Rolapp, the new man in charge, picked up the phone to confront Rory McIlroy. And Rory, well, he didn't just hang up. He refused to back down. Here's why this matters so much. Rory went public a few days ago, calling Rolapp's new two-tier system a glorified Korn Ferry event. That's not a small comment. That's the biggest star on tour publicly burning the CEO's master plan right before the US Open. Rolapp had to respond, so he made that call. The timing wasn't random. It was the morning of June 23rd, right before Rolapp had to face the media. But here is the part that has the golf world on edge. Rolapp walked into that press conference and acted like everything was fine. He mentioned the call, kept it casual. But Rory didn't stay quiet afterwards. He doubled down. That's the signal. The CEO tried to put out the fire, and Rory threw gasoline right back on it. So what was actually said on that phone? And why does Rory feel completely untouchable right now? Don't worry, we're breaking down every single detail of that confrontation. But I have to be honest with you. My take is that Rolapp picked a fight with the wrong guy. Rory has leverage, and he knows exactly how to use it. What do you think? Is Rory right to push back, or should he just get in line? Let me know in the comments. And if you want the full story on why this standoff could change the PGA Tour forever, make sure you're subscribed, because this is just the beginning. That tension didn't just appear out of nowhere. It started with a plan. Brian Rolapp walked into the CEO role with a bold vision: completely restructure the PGA Tour into something nobody had ever seen before. 2 tiers, Champion Series, Challenger Series. Think of it like soccer's promotion and relegation system, or Formula One's elite calendar. The top players would compete against each other more often. The big money events would get even bigger, and the smaller tournaments, they'd get pushed down into a secondary circuit. Sounds logical on paper, but there was one massive problem. Rory McIlroy saw it immediately, and he wasn't quiet about it. The Champion Series would feature roughly 23 to 24 events per year, each offering a staggering $20 million in prize money. That's the Super League. The Challenger Series would be at least 20 events, but with purses dropping to just $4 million each. A massive gap. Almost 5 times less money for the exact same tour card holders. Rolapp's argument was simple. This creates scarcity. Fans will know exactly which events matter most. Every tournament becomes a battle for survival. You either perform and stay in the top tier, or you drop down and fight your way back up. It's the kind of system that rewards excellence and punishes mediocrity. For a CEO looking to compete with LIV Golf's big money spectacle, it made perfect sense. But here's where it gets interesting. Rory didn't attack the numbers. He attacked the soul of the game. He pointed directly at the Canadian Open, a tournament with over a century of history, a national championship. Rory won that event twice. He knows what it means to Canadian golf fans. And under Rolapp's system, that tournament could become a Challenger Series event, a glorified secondary circuit, essentially a feeder league for the real money weeks. Rory called it exactly what it was, a glorified Korn Ferry event. That phrase hit like a bomb, because it implied that a tournament with that much tradition would become nothing more than a stepping stone for players trying to make it to the big leagues. And the sponsors? They'd have to pony up $30 million just to stay relevant. Otherwise, their event gets demoted. Rolapp's vision was about money and efficiency. Rory's objection was about legacy and respect. And the moment those two worldviews collided, the phone call became inevitable. Rolapp had to try and control the narrative. But controlling Rory McIlroy, that was never going to be easy. Rolapp walked into that conversation believing he had the upper hand, but what he didn't realize was that Rory had been preparing for this moment for months. Rewind to the week before that phone call. The US Open was just days away. The media was gathered, cameras rolling, questions flying, and then Rory stepped up to the microphone. Nobody expected what came next. A reporter asked him about Rolapp's 2-tier plan. Most players would have given a safe answer. Something like, "We'll see how it plays out," or "I trust the leadership." That's the standard playbook. Avoid controversy, protect your relationships, keep the peace. Rory didn't do any of that. He looked straight into the camera and said the Challenger Series would be nothing more than a glorified Korn Ferry event. He specifically mentioned the Canadian Open, He said he didn't think a tournament with that much history should be demoted to a secondary circuit. He even went further, saying the PGA Tour was operating in a false economy created by LIV Golf's spending spree, and that maybe the old ways weren't so bad after all. That's not a criticism. That's a declaration of war. The room went quiet. Reporters scrambled to type notes. Cameras zoomed in on Rory's face, looking for any hint of hesitation. There was none. He meant every single word. Think about the timing here. Rolapp was about to unveil his grand vision to the public. He had spent months building this plan. He had convinced the policy board. He had lined up sponsors. He was ready to present himself as the savior of the PGA Tour, the man who would bring order to chaos. And then his biggest star stood up and told the world that the plan was fundamentally flawed. Not just flawed, dangerous. A threat to the very tradition that made golf special. Rolapp had to watch those comments spread like wildfire. Every golf podcast, every sports show, every social media feed was dissecting Rory's words. Glorified Korn Ferry became the phrase of the week. It was everywhere, and it was killing Rolapp's momentum before he even got started. That's when the decision was made. Rolapp couldn't let this stand. He couldn't let Rory control the narrative. He had to confront him directly, man to man, player to CEO, a private phone call that would settle things once and for all. The call happened, but what came after revealed more than the conversation itself ever could. Let's get into exactly what was said, because the details matter. Rolapp opened the conversation diplomatically. He acknowledged Rory's comments. He said he understood the passion behind them. He even agreed that the Canadian Open was a historic event. On the surface, it sounded like he was trying to find common ground, but then he pivoted. He laid out his defense. He explained that the Challenger Series events would still feature recognizable venues. He pointed out that the purses were still substantial. $4 million is nothing to dismiss. He emphasized that the total number of tournaments and players would remain exactly the same. No one was losing their tour card. No tournament was being canceled. It was just a reorganization, not a reduction. Sound reasonable? On paper, maybe. But Rory wasn't buying it. He pushed back hard. He said the gap between 20 million and 4 million was too wide. He said sponsors would be forced to choose between paying up or watching their events fade into irrelevance. He said the promotion relegation model might work in soccer, but golf isn't soccer. Golf has tradition. Golf has history. Golf has events that matter for reasons beyond money. Rory didn't just disagree. He dismantled the argument piece by piece, and he did it calmly, confidently, without raising his voice. That's when Rolapp realized he was losing control. He had expected a difficult conversation. He hadn't expected to get steamrolled, but the real turning point came when Rolapp tried to apply pressure. He reminded Rory that the tour was bigger than any one player. He hinted that cooperation would be appreciated. He suggested that being a team player might benefit everyone in the long run. It was a subtle threat, a warning that Rory's defiance could have consequences. Rory's response? Silence. Not angry silence, not awkward silence, just a brief pause, followed by a calm statement that Rolapp wouldn't be happy to hear. He said he would continue to speak his mind. He said he had nothing to lose. And he said the tour needed to reconsider its direction before it was too late. That was the moment the call effectively ended. But Rory's refusal wasn't just about that conversation. It was about everything that came before it. The press conference happened just hours after that phone call. Rolapp walked in, sat down, and faced a room full of reporters desperate for answers. When the first question came about Rory's glorified Korn Ferry comments, Rolapp didn't flinch. He acknowledged that he had spoken with Rory that morning. He said they had talked a bit about it. Then he added, "I think he's made some comments publicly since then." That phrase tells you everything. Some comments publicly since then? The subtext is clear. We talked. I explained things. He went ahead and doubled down anyway. Rolapp then launched into his defense. He repeated the numbers. 47 events. 230 players. Nothing changing. Challenger Series events at recognizable venues. Solid purses. Everything under control. But here's the part that fascinated golf insiders. Rolapp avoided directly acknowledging the financial gap. He didn't address why a Challenger Series event should pay 5 times less than a Champion Series event. He didn't explain how a Canadian Open, a national championship, could be demoted without losing its identity. It was spin, pure polished corporate spin, and everyone could see through it. Golf analysts, former players, journalists. They all picked up on the disconnect. Rolapp was speaking in statistics. Rory was speaking in values. And in a sport built on tradition, values tend to win. The worst part for Rolapp, Rory didn't stop. He didn't issue a clarification. He didn't walk anything back. He continued to reiterate his position in subsequent media appearances. Every time a microphone was pointed at him, he repeated the same message. The system is flawed, the tradition is threatened, and he wasn't going to stay silent. That's when the golf world realized something crucial. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate stand by the most powerful player in the game. But why? What gave Rory the confidence to openly defy the CEO? Here's the secret. The PGA Tour requires players to compete in at least 15 tournaments per season. If they don't, they face penalties. In extreme cases, they could even lose their eligibility. Rory is on track to miss that number this year. On paper, that's a serious problem. It's a violation of tour rules. It should trigger consequences. But here's the catch. The PGA Tour's rulebook includes something called a discretionary clause. It basically says the commissioner can waive the minimum requirement for foreign players or players with extraordinary circumstances. And Rory knows exactly how that clause will be applied. It won't be applied at all, because the PGA Tour can't afford to punish its biggest star. Think about it. Rory McIlroy is the reason millions of people watch golf. He's the guy sponsors want to see. He's the name that sells tickets. If the tour penalized him, the backlash would be enormous. Fans would turn against the leadership. Media would have a field day. And the new CEO would be seen as the villain who attacked the game's greatest ambassador. Rory knows this. He knows he's too valuable to be disciplined. He knows the tour needs him more than he needs the tour. That's the leverage. That's the power dynamic that Rolapp walked into when he picked up that phone. Rory could have played it safe. He could have given diplomatic answers. He could have kept his head down and let the CEO have his moment. But why would he? He has nothing to fear. No punishment, no retaliation, no real consequences. He can say whatever he wants, and he's proven that he will. This dynamic isn't just about Rory. It speaks to a much bigger problem in professional golf. The traditional tournaments are suffering. Colonial, Canadian Open, events with decades of history are losing their appeal because the biggest stars are chasing bigger paychecks and bigger events. And the new system Rolapp is proposing only accelerates that trend. If the Canadian Open gets demoted to a Challenger Series event, what happens next? The prize money drops. The field quality drops. Sponsorship dollars drop. The tournament becomes less relevant, and eventually, it becomes a shell of what it once was. That's the reality Rory is fighting against. And he's doing it alone. Where are the other voices? Where are the other stars? Some players have expressed mild concerns. Lucas Glover, for example, criticized the proposed changes. But no one else has been as bold as Rory. No one else has been willing to stand up and say what everyone else is thinking. So it's Rory against the machine. One player against the entire power structure of professional golf. And right now, he's winning. But what happens next? That's the question that has everyone on edge. Rolapp can't force Rory to cooperate. He can't punish him. He can't silence him. He can only try to persuade him. And persuasion doesn't seem to be working. The 2028 implementation date is still more than a year away. That's a long time for tensions to simmer, a long time for alliances to shift, a long time for Rolapp to adjust his strategy, or for Rory to dig in even deeper. So where does that leave us? Right here, watching a standoff that will define the next decade of professional golf. If you believe the tour needs to evolve, that the old system was broken, and something new is required, maybe you side with Rolapp. Maybe you think Rory should get on board and help build the future instead of fighting it. If you believe the tour is losing its soul, that tradition matters more than money, and that players like Rory are the guardians of the game's integrity, maybe you side with the four-time major champion. Maybe you think he's right to stand his ground. There's no wrong answer, but there's a choice to be made. And that choice will shape what professional golf looks like for years to come. One thing is certain. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Rory McIlroy refused to back down on that phone call. He's refused to back down in the weeks since, and he's not going to change his mind anytime soon. Rolapp isn't backing down either. He's committed to his vision. He believes in the system, and he'll keep pushing forward. So we're looking at a collision course. Two powerful forces, two irreconcilable visions, a battle for the heart and soul of professional golf, and we get to watch it unfold. I told you at the start that my take was Rolapp picked a fight with the wrong guy. Now you know why. Rory has leverage, he has conviction, and he has nothing to lose. That combination is dangerous for any CEO. But here's what I really want to know. Where do you stand? Is Rory right to fight this system? Or should he accept the change and move on? Drop your take in the comments. Let's get a real debate going. And if you want to stay updated on every twist in this story, hit that subscribe button, because this is the biggest story in golf right now, and we're not done covering it. Not even close.